Welcome, welcome to my ex dirty secrets.
The knock at my door came at 11:46 p.m. 3 sharp, hesitant taps that sounded too familiar to ignore. I froze, a mug of cold tea trembling in my hands. The TV played some late-night news in the background, but all I heard was my pulse thudding inside my ears. When I opened the door, the last person I expected to see stood there. Daniel. He looked exactly the same, just older. That same crooked half-smile that used to make me melt, only now it felt like a knife twisting deeper. Behind him, the hallway light glowed dim and yellow, like something out of a dream that had long soured. "Hey," he said, his voice low, uncertain. "You look different." I didn't answer. My throat went dry, like every unsaid word from 5 years ago had turned to dust. He took a small step forward, then stopped himself. "Can I come in?" The question lingered in the air, gentle but heavy with history. I should have said no. I should have slammed the door and let him rot in the memory of what he'd done. But my mouth betrayed me before my heart could protest. "Yeah," I whispered. "Come in." The smell of rain and cheap cologne followed him inside. He looked around like he was searching for ghosts, and in a way he was. This was the same apartment where we'd spent countless nights laughing, crying, planning weddings. Back then, Daniel was my fiancé's best friend, my rock's rock, the man I thought would stand beside us at the altar. Instead, he walked down the aisle with Ethan's bride, with me watching from a distance like some discarded chapter of my own life. I still remember that day as if my body was branded by it. Phone call. The light. The silence. 5 years later, and my heart still flinched at the memory. "Still keeping plants alive?" Daniel asked, brushing his fingers across the leaves of the monstera by the window. "Barely," I said. "Like most things." He smiled softly. "You always were honest to a fault." "Yeah," I said, meeting his eyes. "That used to be my problem." A flicker of something, guilt maybe, passed through him. He shifted his weight. "You must think I'm insane showing up here like this." "You're not wrong." He nodded. "I deserve that." There was a long silence. The kind that forces you to hear everything. The rain ticking against glass, the hum of the refrigerator, the uneven rhythm of your own heartbeat. Finally, I asked the question that had been waiting half a decade. "Why now, Daniel?" His eyes dropped to the floor. "Because she's gone." The words hit harder than I expected. "Gone." "She left," he said, exhaling. "Took the kid. Said she couldn't do it anymore. Said she couldn't live with the lies." The lies. I almost laughed. The irony was almost poetic, except it wasn't poetry. It was pain that had never faded. "She couldn't live with the lies," I repeated quietly. "That's rich coming from her." "I know," he said, voice cracking. "I know how it sounds. But you don't understand. She wasn't the only one who lied." My heart jolted. There it was, the crack in his armor. The thing I never got, not after the texts, the betrayal, the wedding invitation that arrived like a slap. "What do you mean?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly smaller. "I need you to hear the truth. About what happened. About why it happened." "Why?" I whispered, more to myself than him. "Why would I want to dig that up?" "Because you deserve to know. Because you never stopped blaming yourself." My chest tightened. He wasn't wrong. 4 years I had replayed that night like a broken record. What I said, what I didn't say, what signs I missed. "You think I blamed myself," said. "You think I spent the last 5 years wondering what I did wrong." He looked at me, eyes wet. "Didn't you?" I hated that he could still read me. Hated that a part of me still responded to the tone that once comforted me when Ethan forgot my birthday, when work broke me, when I thought Daniel was just my friend, not the man who would one day break me too. "Tell me then," I said. "Tell me the truth you've been dying to share." He nodded slowly, and I saw his hands tremble. "Ethan wasn't supposed to find out," he said. "Not like that." "What are you talking about?" He looked up, eyes glassy. "He wasn't supposed to find out that night. About us. My stomach dropped. Us. 5 years ago, he whispered. You weren't the only one betrayed. The room tilted. My vision swam for a second. I heard the clock ticking. Louder, like time itself was mocking me. You're lying, I said, stepping back. Don't you dare. I'm not, he said sharply. I'm not lying, Clara. You and I, it wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. You were drunk, you said you loved me, and I. Stop, I said, but my voice broke halfway. Because in some shadowed corner of my memory, there was a missing piece. A night blurred by wine and thunder, a half-remembered laugh, a feeling I buried deep. I had always blamed him, always blamed her. But what if I wasn't as innocent as I remembered? Daniel's voice softened. I didn't plan it. I didn't even tell her. But she found the messages. She confronted you, didn't she? I shook my head, dazed. I don't remember. You do, he said quietly. You just don't want to. Tears welled in my eyes, hot and dizzying. You're saying what cheated? That I somehow caused all this? I'm saying we both did, he said, voice low, breaking. And Ethan found out. That's why he left you. That's why she left me. It all started that night. My knees almost gave out. Outside, thunder rolled through the city, distant and hollow, like the echo of an old sin finally answering back. I sat down hard on the couch, the room spinning, the truth clawing at every nerve. Daniel sat across from me, his face pale, waiting for a reaction that wouldn't come. For years I had thought he was the villain, and I was the broken one he'd left behind. But now the cracks were shifting, and through them something uglier was emerging. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm, detached. You said she left you. Did she know? He nodded. Eventually. And she took the kid. Yes. I stared at him, the weight of what I was processing pressing down like lead. Then maybe, I said, standing slowly, this is just karma catching up to both of us. He flinched. Clara. Don't. He reached out, but I stepped back. Outside, the rain turned heavier, streaking the glass like tears. When I looked at him again, he wasn't the boy I used to know. He was the mirror I had spent years avoiding, the reminder that betrayal never happens in clean lines. It festers in the gray, in the silences between words, in the half-truths we choose to forget. He looked like he wanted to say more, but I stopped him with one question. Why now, Daniel? Why come back after all this time? His voice cracked. Because I think she's gone for good. And you're the only person who ever really knew me. I turned away before he could see me cry. Because the truth was, he wasn't wrong. And that terrified me more than anything. The next morning came gray and heavy. Rain still whispered against the windows, and the faint smell of Daniel's cologne lingered in the air. That sharp citrus scent that used to make me feel safe, long before I learned what danger it disguised. Barely slept. My mind replayed his words, twisting them into 1,000 versions of reality. Each one worse than the last. I tried to convince myself it was a lie, that Daniel was just rewriting history to ease his guilt. But the more I tried to push the thought away, the more cracks formed in the perfect narrative I'd built to survive. Fragments began to return. The night Ethan left. The fight. The storm outside. The bottle of red wine I'd nearly finished alone. And Daniel, showing up to check on me because Ethan had called him, worried about my panic attack. I remembered how I had clung to him when I cried. How his shirt smelled like rain and smoke. How I told him I was tired of being the second priority in my own relationship. I remembered his hand brushing my cheek. And then nothing. Gap. A silence that stretched across years. Till now. By noon, I was still pacing the apartment when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Clara. It's her. We need to talk. My heart stopped. It was Hannah. The woman Daniel had left me for. The woman he married. The woman who had once been my closest friend before any of this began. For a few seconds, I just stared at the message, my breath caught between fear and fury. Then, against every instinct screaming "Don't do it," I texted back. When and where? She replied instantly. Café Lyra. 1 p.m. Come alone. The cafe hadn't changed much since the last time I'd been there. Same creaking floorboards, same chalkboard menu. Same barista who pretended not to recognize me. When I walked in, Hannah was already there, sitting by the window, a coffee untouched in front of her. She looked tired. Not just physically but spiritually. Like someone who'd been living with the weight of too many secrets. For a long moment we just stared at each other. Then she said quietly, "You look good." I almost laughed. "You don't." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Fair." The silence that followed was thick, almost unbearable. Finally she broke it. "I didn't come to fight," she said. "I came to explain. Daniel already tried that. I'm sure he did." She stirred her coffee but didn't drink it. "And I bet he told you it was your fault." Froze. "He didn't say that." She looked up sharply. "Didn't have to. That's how he works." Her voice was calm, but there was venom underneath, the kind born from betrayal that festers too long. 5 years ago," she continued, "Daniel told me you were in love with him, that you'd confessed it while drunk, and that Ethan found out." My throat tightened. "That's not what happened." "I know," she said softly. "I didn't at first. But I do now." Her hands shook slightly as she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. She slid it across the table. "Listen to this." I hesitated, then pressed play. Daniel's voice filled the air. Recorded, raw, unguarded. "She never confessed anything, Hannah. I made it up. Ethan was already doubting her, and I just pushed it over the edge. I thought if I told him she'd kissed me, he'd leave. And he did." Silence. Then a sharp inhale. Hannah's voice, cold and trembling. "You ruined her for what? So you could have me." "No," he whispered. "Because I couldn't have her." I couldn't breathe. The walls seemed to tilt around me. The cafe dissolving into static. Hannah's voice pulled me back. "He lied to both of us, Clara. He always did." Tears stung my eyes. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm done cleaning up his messes. Because I found out he's been messaging you again. And because I thought you should know. He's not looking for closure." "Then what does he want?" She leaned in, her voice dropping. "Forgiveness. He's desperate. But not for you, for himself." Her words hit like a knife. All those years I'd carried guilt, self-blame, quiet shame. All of it had been planted there by a lie. Daniel had broken Ethan's trust, stolen mine, and trapped Hannah in a marriage built on deception. Every tear, every sleepless night, every whisper of doubt, all of it had been part of his story, not mine. And now he wanted me to help him rewrite the ending. Well, not this time. That evening I went to his house. He opened the door before I could knock, like he'd been waiting. His eyes were red, and there were boxes stacked by the door. "She came to see you," he said quietly. "Yes." "She told you everything." "Yes." He nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Then you know why I did it." I stared at him. "You did it because you wanted control. Because you couldn't stand being loved halfway. Because you'd rather destroy something than watch someone else have it." His jaw clenched. "You think that's fair?" "No," I said. "But it's true." He looked away, his voice cracking. "I loved you, Clara. You don't know what that did to me. Then maybe you shouldn't have destroyed me to prove it." He took a step closer. "You still think I'm the monster." "I don't think," I said. "I know." He winced. "You can hate me all you want. But you were the only person who ever really saw me." "I did," I said quietly. "And that's exactly why I'll never make that mistake again." For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. Hannah's recording. "I think this belongs to you," I said. "And I think the police might be interested in hearing how you fabricated a confession to manipulate someone's life." His face went white. "Clara, don't." "I already did." And for the first time in 5 years, He was the one left standing in silence while I walked away. That night I packed my things, the plants, the old photos, the ghosts I was finally ready to release. As I closed the door behind me, I realized something that took 5 years to learn. Betrayal isn't just about who breaks your heart. It's about who makes you believe you were the reason it shattered. And sometimes, healing means accepting that your story deserves to be rewritten. Not by the ones who broke it, but by the one who survived it. When I drove away, the rain had stopped. The sky was pale and open, streaked with morning light. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like a memory chasing me. Felt like freedom,